Hello! We have 3 stories today of hilarious screw-ups. Our first story is of a man whose first date goes suddenly and exceptionally wrong. Ignoring all the red flags, OP accepts his fate the moment he realized his mistake. But that doesn't stop the flood of the aftermath any more than someone can stop the tide. In story 1. This happened this morning. This TIFU started on Saturday. It's Thursday now. Matched with a girl on Facebook dating, and she was very cute. I did notice that she only smiled with her top row of teeth in the pictures. I figured that her bottom teeth might be effed up, but didn't think much of it. She had trad wife energy, and I was into it. We end up meeting on Sunday after some pretty clean chatting. Turns out she lives exactly 8 minutes from me, so I offered to pick her up for our first date. I learn a lot about her in a very short time. I won't reveal all the details, but she had battled a long time with eating disorders, thus her teeth a bit janky. From what I saw, they weren't that bad. This is all a red herring. Nothing about this TIFU has to do with the teeth. I wanted to mention it because I was so focused on this that I didn't pick up the other red flags. I also find out that she doesn't drink all that often and only at mealtimes if it's appropriate. How nice! She also lives with her parents. Why? She has a surgery coming up and it's involving a lot of physical therapy. I pieced together it's probably due to her aforementioned eating disorders and a complication thereof. Otherwise, great date. Fast forward to last night and this morning. I invite her over for dinner. The plan was her dad would drop her off because she doesn't have her car due to a recent wreck, and I would drive her home later that evening. Okay. She also tells me that she is a felon, like 1 hour before we hang out. Okay. Don't worry, it's just 3 DUIs and it's over with. Thanks for telling me? No, really, I should have paid attention to this red flag. She comes over, and after pleasantries, I start to cook a shrimp and curry soup. She asks for a drink. I show her my drink cabinet, and she picks out the most expensive tequila I have. That's fine. She proceeds to have 2 shots. Biggest screw up. I presume that everyone is good at self-regulation of their drinking. It's just what I believe. We know if we are getting toasted or not, and it's intentional. I join and catch up with 2 shots. I get a seltzer for myself, and she grabs a drink. And another one. 4 drinks in, 40 minutes for this 110-pound person. I assume she's good at holding her liquor. After dinner, we are cuddling where she has her head in my lap. Suddenly, to my surprise, she takes her pants off and says, "Let's go to bed." Gentle reader, let me mention nothing untoward happened here. I was barely registering as tipsy and she was beyond drunk. I set her in bed and she immediately passes out. No worries. I'll put a trash can near her and I'll go watch some TV and play games and check on her. The horror story starts here. I check on her and I realize that my bed is dark. I touch it. It's pee. Just fracking great. I attempt to rouse her and alert her she has soiled herself and my bed. She wakes up and asks me why I'm waking her up and then tries to flirt with me. I then notice she's soiling herself, again, actively, while trying to seduce me. I somehow manage to get her to the bathroom and sit her on a toilet and have her drink water to sober up. This was a bad plan later. She refuses to use the toilet and I ease her down to the ground on my fuzzy bath mat. I drape her with a towel and place another beneath her, just in case. I then spend the next 5 hours until 4:30 a.m. washing my clothes, her clothes, my bedding, and comforter. At some point, I sit on the couch, where she was earlier, and realized that she had soiled my couch. That's why she was so urgent to go to bed. F my life. I do check on her to make sure she's okay, and I end up changing her towel. Twice. I finally decide to go to sleep at around 5 and I have to work at 9, despite the ice storm. I set an alarm at 8 so I can drive her the heck home and forget it all happened. At 6:30, she wakes up, confused and naked, to which I provide her some of my gym clothes that I don't really care about. I go back to the couch and she is embarrassed and hungry. Fine, go eat leftovers, but let me sleep. She clangs around in the kitchen for a while. She apparently ate all the shrimp in the soup. Great. She decides to cuddle with me on the couch, and I had no energy to push her away. She attempts to kiss me, but I rebuke it, and then realize there's gin on her breath. I spring up and go to the kitchen and realize she drank another 4 ounces of gin at 7:30 a.m. I run back to the bed and she's catatonic again. I start to freak out and see her phone. She told me her birthday on the first date and used that to open her phone. Voila. Turns out she missed like 9 calls from her parents. So I call them from her phone. I explain every single detail of the happenings of the night and they are mortified. I tell them I have work and they need to come get her now. An hour later, her father shows up, which is ridiculous because they live so close. But I was just happy he was there. I had gathered her laundry, belongings, etc., and give it to Dad. Dad is not happy. He yells at her and I tell him, "Hey, sorry, my house, please no yelling." He apologizes and agrees. Surprised that actually worked, but I guess he was embarrassed about everything. Dad takes the stuff and comes back and says, "She was almost 1 week sober, and this happens. Not your fault, son." Oh, the DUI thing makes sense now. She cannot stand up by herself. So he tries to scoop her up from the couch, but she's completely dead weight and wakes up, yelling that she hates her dad. And pees on him and my couch again. We both end up dragging her to the car, and my neighbors are watching, mortified of what seems like a kidnapping happening. Her mom just texted me to apologize a few hours later and that she would get me my clothes back. Edit. I'm most upset that I'm sitting here eating my shrimpless soup. In the comments, Sulfaliz said, "My guy, you brought in the equivalent of a stray cat." Hobbit Feet said, "I can't believe you ate the soup. She might have dipped her pea-soaked hands into the soup to grab the shrimps." OP replied, "Someone else noted this. I'm mortified." OP, I'm sorry, but I laughed at your expense throughout this entire story. Thank you for sharing. I love that you own that it's your own fault for ignoring all the red flags. You could literally make a pennant banner out of red flags here. How many times did she mark her territory before you called her parents to pick her up? Lesson learned. By the way, are you still using Facebook dating? Our second story came shortly after the Carrot Boy TIFU story, which I recently read. The thing is, you can't go full vegetable theme screw up without it shaking loose a memory like the Celery Man. The Veggie Tales continue in story 2. My friend has a bad habit of not double checking or revising his work. Earlier in 2022, he asked me to look at his resume as he was looking to apply for new jobs. I said sure. Let's say his name was Tom Henderson. I edited the name to be Tom, the Celery Man Henderson. I also added a bullet point to each of his positions in job experience that said, "Crunching and munching that celery." Why did I do this? I did this as a joke, assuming he'd see it and remove the silly edits. When I gave him feedback on the resume, I asked him if he would be sure to make some revisions before sending it out. He said sure. Well, he didn't. Not only that, but he never noticed the edits. It turns out since April 2022, he has been sending out resumes with the Celery Man on the resume. He has good experience and has been frustrated all year how he got like no interviews. He actually had one initial call with a recruiter and was perplexed when the recruiter guy called him Celery Man. He had no idea what it meant, but just went along with it. Never got a second interview. Finally, before New Year's, he had a legit interview. They also made a Celery Man joke, which astounded him, and he asked why they made this reference. They told him it was all over his resume. He was mortified. He even told them he had no idea this was on there. But in doing so, it basically came out that he had never looked at his resume. He thinks this is the reason he didn't get the job. In any case, I had to confess to him I was the one who did this. But it had never been my intention that he would actually send it to jobs. I thought he'd have noticed it right away. Well, he is quite mad at me. He said I've made him the jackhat to all of the New York City tech scene and that I went beyond all acceptable lines of pranking. I think he's overreacting a bit. I mean, it is just a silly prank, really, and how in the world does somebody not notice this for almost an entire year on their own resume? I am worried it might cost me this friendship, though, so I am hoping to find a way to make it up to him. In the comments, and in response to, "My friend has a bad habit of not double checking or revising his work, and I did this as a joke, assuming he'd see it and remove the silly edits," FG88 said, Platitude said, "I see the problem. Reform Scholastic added, "You saw the problem faster than the guy saw his resume." The Rainbow Fluffy one said, "I just read this to my wife who was laughing so hard she started crying and saying stop. I carried on reading until it turned out she had pulled a muscle in her spine from laughing too hard." Zachariah added, "TIFU by reading the Celery Man post to my wife." Lord Poopless said, "This is one of the best TIFUs I have seen in a while." Chips in a Bag added, "Have you read about Carrot Boy today, though? Almost peed my pants." Guy Incognito shared, "Dude, he's a carrot man now. Show some respect. It's like you don't care at all." Chips in a Bag replied, "Wow, sorry. I hope he doesn't read this. Or he will come after me in 30 years. That 30 years comment makes all the sense if you've heard the Carrot Boy story that took TIFU by storm recently. Highly recommended. I'll add a link to the video in the description." OP, I'm not a prankster, so I can see why Celery Man would say you crossed a line. However, there were strings attached. Get it? Celery is stringy. To your offer to edit. He said he'd do a final review. And who the heck doesn't check their resume for each job application? I mean, if he's applying for something that requires high attention to detail, I think you did those companies a service. Just saying. Our third story is super short but hits hard. It's the epitome of what TIFU is and always was meant to be. Absolute cringe where you want to crawl up into yourself and disappear. Story 3. I was on the tube on the way to see some friends in North London. Whilst looking around on the tube to pass the time, I noticed someone a few seats down that looked remarkably similar to an old friend of mine who I hadn't spoken to or seen for a while. Although this person was a lot rougher around the edges and about 20 kilograms heavier than my friend is. As the resemblance was uncanny, I decided to sneak a quick photo of the person to send to my friend. When I got out of the tube and regained service on my phone, I sent them a message with the photo with the caption, "This guy looks just like you if you packed on some pounds." The message was opened almost immediately. No reply for a few minutes. That is me, OP. I haven't been able to respond yet. I'm too embarrassed. I feel truly awful about it, though. Serves me right for being a bit of a donkey. In the comments, Fred Sam said, "You might need to ghost your previous life. Just throw your phone and ID cards away. You won't need them anymore. You're going to start fresh with a new identity because there's no recovering from this." OP, your ex-friend now knows what it's like to be asked if you're pregnant. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.